I may sound like I'm repeating some of what you just heard, but I'm just writing this from my perspective. And I have raised 4 children, the first 2 without the Lord, and the second 2 with the Lord. So I had a totally different perspective in raising Heather and Becky. As I grew in the Lord, I felt His prompting to homeschool the girls. When the girls were young, I was with them 24/7, a lot. Probably one of the most profitable things we did was we read a lot. We read wonderful biographies. We read Little House on the Prairie series, C.S. Lewis. Incredible missionary stories. They loved Christian romance stories. I remember the girls pretending to be getting married. Teddy bears were their audience. One was the bride, Big Bear, he was the groom, and the other daughter was the pastor. She was announcing them man and wife. It was very cute. They were in love with love, and they were preparing for the day of their life. They both loved thinking about that day that they would get married, and what that looked like, who that special person might be. We started talking about the boy-girl relationship when they were very young. As they grew older and the more curious they became, we would take the next step. Often, they led the way. When they wanted to know something, you talked about it without going in beyond where, you would talk about it without going beyond where their curiosity had taken them. The key here is not shutting them off and yet not going beyond what they can understand. Both Steve and I talked with the girls about these things, but being home with the girls, I would say, I talked with him probably most of the time, and he did early on in their lives as well. But I remember reading them books about the subject. Honestly, these books did help me a great deal. They would give me ideas, they would tell me things that possibly I shouldn't approach at that time in their life when they were younger. So I would really encourage you, if you're looking for a way to talk to your young children, to get a resource. It helps. Sometimes, something else I would like to mention when the girls were growing up was we did not have cable TV. Our TV was used for videos that we felt were edifying. We did not want the TV to play a big role in their lives. I think it worked well, and as it opened the door, which was doing a lot more reading actually. Steve read to us every night. This was so special and so bonding. We would always wrap it up with a wonderful time of prayer, and we knew their eyes had not taken in unwholesome commercials, etc., which TV brings into our home. When the girls reached an age of making choices about what they were going to wear, this opened another door. The discussion of modesty. We talked about what it meant to be modest and why they should be modest and what effect it had on the opposite sex. This was not always easy. They, like most girls, were concerned about their self-image and fitting in with the current culture. We worked hard on helping them to understand the biblical concept of who they were in Christ. I remember telling them also what the modest woman was far more appealing and far more mysterious, which actually is true. They are not bearing it all. And they liked that, actually. Their father played a big role in this. When they bought new clothes home, Daddy got a fashion show. And he was honest in his assessment of the clothes that they had bought. There was a couple times they took things back. This was very helpful, and I encourage you dads here to take a part in this. I'm so thankful Steve did. And the cool thing was is that they wanted to please Daddy with what they were wearing. And he gave them that idea. That was really special. Steve and I prayed for their future spouses. We talked a lot with the girls about their relationship with guys. We encouraged them not to date at an early age. We talked a lot about what kind of man they should be looking for. First of all, and most importantly, they should not tempt themselves by dating non-Christian men. Next, the character of the man was very important. We encouraged them to observe the man that they were interested in. and see how he related to others. We were trying to help them to see that a young man might treat them as a princess, but treat others differently. We were trying to help them see the bigger picture of who the person was. What was he like with his family, his siblings, his friends, etc.? Was he sincere in his walk with the Lord? This also would apply if you were to reverse the roles. Young men need to look hard at the young girl they are interested in, that they're infatuated with. But look hard, do the same thing as I just explained that we encouraged our daughters to do. One other thing stands out. A young mother from our church, Sherry Reel, had been mentored by someone when she was a teenager and had felt it had been of great value in her life. She felt the Lord wanted her to do the same with a group of girls. Heather and Becky were privileged to be a part of that group. And I think it really helped both of them a lot. And if there's any of you out there that are young and would like to do that, oh man, I would encourage that. That is so good. Because I think that sometimes what the children hear from their parents or from their mom or their dad, if they hear it from someone else, it just kind of really reinforces what you've said. They might not even hear anything different, but it reinforces what you said. It helps them to realize mom and dad aren't just a couple of kooks. Anyway, now I want to read to you the thoughts from our newlywed daughter, Becky, and her husband, Jake, who is a pastor's son, as to how they viewed what their parents did to help them in their journey to purity at the altar. Okay, this is Becky speaking to you. She said, okay, here are some thoughts from both of us. We both think that the fact that our parents talked to us early on about the subject of purity was really helpful. We didn't feel like we had to go figure it all out ourselves. Our parents were the ones who clued us in on sex before TV or friends did. We weren't rolling our eyes because we'd heard it already a million times. We were wide-eyed. Now Jake is speaking. Jake talks about how limited media in his house really helped him. His parents didn't have a double standard as to what was okay for them to watch and what was okay for the kids. His dad was the purity leader in their household. He would turn the TV off if something was inappropriate, even if he was the only one watching. They also had limited internet access, and when they did have more internet access, they used Safe Eyes, an intense firewall system that blocked anything bad. They touched on something here I think that is so important, and that is the double standard that sometimes we as parents might have, and that is that kids go in there because we're going to watch this or that, and it's not appropriate for you. Well, if it's not appropriate for you, believe me, it's not appropriate for mom and dad either. So keep that one in mind. That's a good one. I think for me, you guys really emphasize courtship. This is Becky speaking again, I'm sorry. I think for me, you guys really emphasize courtship from an early age. And I remember deciding in those Friday night Bible studies that this is how I wanted to do it someday. It wasn't just you guys saying, don't sleep with a boy before you're married. You reasoned with us as you would an adult and showed us logically why it was the best way. I also feel like the group I was in with Sherry Reel, when I was in junior high, made a huge difference. Being in that group with other girls my age made it seem like purity was the only way to go. I never wanted anything else. Also, there was a time when each made a commitment, and that commitment was celebrated. With Jake, it was when his parents gave him Promise Keeper. It was a gun. For me, it was when Dad took me out to dinner and gave me my ring. It was more than just signing an abstinence pledge. Our parents were involved in a very deep way. Jake and I never dated around. We held to the philosophy that God had our spouse out there, and we needed to trust that His perfect timing to bring that person along. That helps a lot with purity, because if you don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, there isn't that much temptation. Thank you.